Here at Stories of Hope, Kerry Atherton's mission is to give people a platform to share their stories of hope with the world. We also want to provide the same chance to businesses that are passionate about mental health and want to support the podcast. If you'd like to partner with Stories of Hope and advertise your services on this podcast, send a message to kerry@empowerlifesolutions.com.au with your details. Now, on with the episode. In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host. And today's guest is Leeson Timms. Leeson, who recently appeared on the 60 Minutes special about toxic masculinity, is going to share his story today about how he was sucked into that vortex of false narratives and what impact it had on his life and how he's turning that around for other young people. Hi, Leeson.
Hi, Kerry. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Very excited.
I know I'm really excited to have you sharing on my podcast. After seeing you on 60 Minutes, I was really impacted by your story, and it's an area that I do a lot of work in. Having worked with a lot of young people that are troubled in schools, for about 12 years on the Sunshine Coast, and predominantly a lot of boys, and seeing the way they don't open up and the way that they get so easily influenced when they don't have enough positive role models in their life. It's an area that I'm really passionate about providing early intervention into and prevention. That's something that I loved about your story on 60 Minutes was what you're doing today, and that's working in the man cave, providing that very thing for other young people. So we'll get into that a bit later. Let's go back, and I know you shared with me too, you had a very good role model in your life in your dad.
Yeah, I did. Absolutely.
Tell us a bit about your relationship with your dad before you fell into the vortex.
Yeah, I think going back to the days, I've got two older sisters as well. And I think going back to the days where I had both my sisters at home, still they hadn't moved out yet. And like those pre-COVID, like early teenage years for me, it was a really peak time. My relationship with my dad was fantastic. Like genuinely someone I considered my best friend. Like he knew the ins and outs of my life and always he kind of showed me what it was like to kind of give permission, if that makes sense. He gave me a lot of permission to get things wrong, to make mistakes, to make choices that a young person's going to make. And obviously during COVID, it starts to shift a little bit when it comes to role models. But yeah, those times in my life were fantastic. Absolutely.
And did you always feel like you could talk to your dad openly about anything?
Yeah, I do. There was a couple of situations in my life that really stand out where I was able to do that. And also a few scenarios where he really kept me accountable during some times as well.
Do you feel comfortable to share that?
There was a time when I was in year 8, I had just an incident with a girl in high school where I said some not very nice things. And I remember getting home that day, me and one of my friends went to my house, and straight away, my dad had obviously been given a call by the girl's mum or by my school or something. And I remember it was one of the only times he's been really stern with me about something. My dad's always been like pretty chill and kind of giving me permission to do a lot of things, but he made it really clear that anything to do with disrespect towards women was like really flatline. And it was like, even now I look back at it, was like, I'm really grateful that that was the thing that he was stern about, like not really having a relationship with my mum, having my dad being an advocate for treating women the right way was like something I don't think I appreciated properly in the moment. But I think looking back, it's like, wow, I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's so good. Great. That's a great story. So good old COVID, such a crazy time for everyone. And, I must say, I'm still hearing so many people too, still seeing the after effects of COVID. I don't know if you've heard this at the Man Cave, but the loneliest demographic at the moment reported is young guys between the age of 16 to 24. and maybe we can touch a bit more on that later. Tell me what happened in COVID. I know that one of the things that you did talk about was the loss of that physical, like catching up, connection with your mates and everything like that through COVID, and so disconnection being a big factor. But tell us about that time and how subtly and how quickly the journey into the web and these toxic influences started to spiral.
Yeah. So COVID began for me at the start of year 11. And coincidentally, it was the same year that I just started at a new school. So I was at a high school from year 7 until the end of year 10. And yeah, just like I burnt a lot of the bridges at that school and was still in like quite deep boy psychology, not treating people and not really thinking much outside of my own mind. And yeah, ended up kind of getting to a position where I needed to move schools and started year 11 in this environment that was much more tailored for me, was like a different alternative style of learning, quite more practical in the sporting environment, which really suits me. And then, a month or so in, we get told that we're going home for 2 weeks. And that's kind of what we knew at that point. And originally, I was like, this is awesome. This is fantastic. I can just go home. I can play video games every day. We'll be back
Yeah.
at school soon. It's like a holiday. So the beginning of it was fantastic. We loved it. But, and I say this when I go into rooms of teenage boys, when I tell like a little intro about myself, and those 2 weeks kind of turned into a month, which turned into 3 months. And then for the people that kind of were my age, it started to feel like it just wouldn't end. Like time didn't really exist anymore. And what started to happen was the people that I was connected with before COVID were friendships that I made by being together in person or playing sport together or going to parties. And that just obviously changed. And so unless you played video games with someone or they went to school with you, which in my situation didn't happen because I just started at this new school, we just naturally drifted, like me and a lot of the people that I was close with. And yeah, there was one person during COVID that I got quite close with. I think we both kind of connected on something we really connected on was like the hardships that COVID like came with around
Yeah.
what you're mentioning around like the loneliness. And yeah, there was almost like a bit of insomnia there. Like my sleep schedule had flipped to an opposite. And
And being
because both,
someone who plays sport too, that
yeah.
would have been really hard. What kind of sport do you play?
So I've played basketball since I was a kid, but even more than playing, I've also been a basketball coach since I was 15. And
Wow.
so that was a way for me to be involved in community and be connected.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that either. And it meant that, there wasn't even a return date to basketball. So as far as we knew, it just didn't really exist for the time being.
Yeah.
And I think also being at home, having both my sisters had already moved out. So there was just like so many factors that just all came back to the point of no connection. And without even realizing it, it was just something I so deeply craved. I think I was a little bit too young to understand how important it was. And yeah, I just enabled myself and I guess didn't really have people keeping me accountable to, you know, get off video games, focus on school, maybe go for a walk. And so it was just like, I'm just going to sit in my room all day. And I did that. And I think a lot of other people did that as well. And I think just my mental health just really started to slip. It got to a point in year 11, if I'm honest, where it was like really, really bad. And yeah, just spending every single day inside. And, I was sleeping from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then staying awake through the night. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, my mind became a pretty dangerous place. I didn't even know what it all meant back then. I was only 17, just turned 17. And there was one person during COVID who I felt like I could kind of talk to about the struggles. There was a couple of people. And one of those was a girl who I won't name, but she was like my best friend since I was like quite young, and her and I were very close. And then there was another person in that group that I kind of drifted with. And we actually found out, I believe it was September of 2020, that one of these people that we knew, their mental health had gotten so bad that they actually took their life. And that was the other time for me that my dad was someone I could really lean on. I'd say this again when I go into rooms with teenage boys, but this was someone who I was, quite close with. And I had a brief idea that he was struggling, but I didn't really know how to help. And I didn't think it was ever going to get to the point that it did. And when I found the news out, I just ran out, found my dad, and yeah, he just held me through it for a couple of hours. And
Wow.
losing that person, regardless of how close we were at the time, yeah, it put my mental health on the floor. And I thought it couldn't get worse, and it just did. I couldn't go to his funeral. We were still in restrictions.
That's hard.
And yeah, and I closed off even more to everyone in my life. I didn't talk to my sisters about it. I just told everyone I was good. I did the typical teenage boy thing. The thing that we feel like we have to do as men is, I'm good, I'm fine, I'll get over it. I'm strong, I'm tough. Like, I can't cry about it. Absolutely not. And around the time that that happened, I'd connected with this girl just online. I remember the night that I found out that this person had passed away. This girl FaceTimed me, and we spoke for like quite a few hours that night. And then the next night we FaceTimed again for another couple of hours. And we ended up forming this really nice connection where we both like caught quite serious feelings for each other. And there was something about this girl that came into my life, and she just answered all these questions that were never really answered for me around the way that I was feeling, permission to feel, permission to be upset, permission to grieve. And she actually ended up being my partner for about 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Although we're not together anymore, we split up about 12 months ago. She's like the most important human being I've ever met. I say it to a lot of people that I speak to. I say it when I go into rooms of teenage boys, but yeah, that girl like saved my life. Like literally like picked me up by the shoulders and actually pulled me out of that hole that I was in when I didn't really know who to turn to or like what to do about it. There was a point in, 2020 after and around the time that this person passed away that, yeah, like I got some pretty deep, like suicidal ideation, had started to think about if it was something that I wanted to do, if being around was what I wanted anymore. Yeah, a really dark, challenging time of my life. And yeah, if it wasn't for that girl, like, I don't know what would have happened. And I tell everyone that I speak to that, like, I've just got so much love and I'm so grateful for her and her impact. But as much as there's like deep gratitude for her, I think the thing that's led me to do what I do for work now is, how come I didn't have any kind of help seeking behavior? How come I didn't know how to deal with any of these things? How come no one ever showed me how to grieve, how to deal with loss? No one ever told me how to do that. I think that was the thing that annoyed me most about the schooling system, because by 14, I was getting taught how to put letters in my math equation, but no one ever taught me how to deal with my feelings.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, I think that's where my deep desire came for like working with young boys, because now I see so many younger versions of me. I see so many younger versions of my friend that passed away. I see it everywhere. I've worked with quite a few thousand teenage boys, and yeah, it's so nice to be able to give them the space to feel and to explore and to expand. It's so nice having like a platform to do that on now. Yeah, I think it's needed. I think it's really, really needed.
That's so great.
As you hear this story, what Kerry's discussing might be resonating strongly with you. Perhaps you've experienced something similar yourself and are looking for support. Kerry Atherton is an experienced counsellor and wellbeing coach and has private sessions available if you or someone you know needs some help. You don't have to deal with trauma, addiction, PTSD, and abuse alone. If you'd like to talk about today's episode or your own experiences, book a session with Kerry at empowerlifesolutions.com.au or check the link in the show notes and embrace a future filled with hope. Now back to the episode.
What would you say, because I've run a few programs with teenage boys as well. It was before COVID, and over the 2 years, the actual two biggest problems that they felt like they faced actually changed. But what would you say, out of all the guys that you talk to now, what are the two main things that they struggle with the most in life, do you think?
Look, I'm really lucky. If you're asking about like the people that are directly in my life, I'm really lucky to have a community of like such beautiful, healthy men that, we have a community where, opening up and supporting one another. And we use the term village a lot, and village and community, and we have that together. So I think outside of my community and my village, there's still the age old men can't talk about their feelings. Men can't talk about the real shit that's actually going on. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not, but
Yeah, say whatever you want.
yeah, there's just such a fear and such like a deeply ingrained cultural piece around men can't do this.
You talked about speaking to like heaps of, young people and that. Is this what you're finding out there still with young people out there, that this is one of the main things still?
Absolutely.
Wow.
100%. And the thing that we kind of get to is, it's not there by choice for these young people. It's just the way they feel they have to exist, whether it's from things they've learned from their dads and their grandparents or things that they're seeing online. You look at somebody like an Andrew Tate, where I spoke about how my dad gave me permission when I was younger. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of permission for young people to feel. And so there's this like box that a young man has to live into. And if he tries to step out of it, he's a girl, he's gay, he's being soft, he's being weak. And we see it all the time. And it's really, really dangerous. We get, these young boys are getting policed for trying to step out and do something authentic or do something different.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. Let's talk about that toxic narrative on social media that so many young guys on 60 Minutes, and when you were talking, it was more guys that are probably around the 16 to 28 age bracket, aren't they, that are getting caught up in this false narrative of what success looks like and what it takes to be a real man. Let's talk about those toxic false narratives that are really coming through online.
I'm not 100% sure, like, I guess, who the prominent figures are nowadays.
And we don't have to name names, but just
Yeah.
the narratives that are being put out there.
For me, the narratives are much the same, but I think they're slipping more into, like, for me, what's not even changed. I think, like, the message is the same, but the messenger might be different. Like, for me, Andrew Tate was, and I spoke about this, was a funny, rich, famous person with, like, a lot of charisma. That's a really appealing thing. You'd be silly to say that's not something that's appealing when you don't take in all the other context of it. But there was the subliminal messaging that gets pushed through that around actual really deep, like, coercive control and, like, manipulation towards women. And I think that's still a message that's getting put across online around, like, I just can't imagine how scary it is to be maybe like a young girl or a young woman in society at the moment. I hear a lot of stories from people that I know and people that I'm close to. And even for myself, still at times, I'm acting in a way that if I have my time again, I'd actually probably do it differently when it comes to the way that I treat people, because it's just such deeply ingrained things.
And, I mean, I'm a lot older than you now, but back when I was younger, I was sexually assaulted and I was in a abusive relationship and I was controlled.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like having these discussions because, if we can prevent one person from ending up going down that same slippery slope, the conversation's worth it.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's the whole mission, isn't it?
Yeah. And I do really feel so much, like you said, for young girls as well, because they're actually copping the brunt of what these toxic influencers tell guys that girls like and what they should be like.
100%. And at the same time, I truly don't think these young men are trying to be malicious. Like,
No,
I
not at
think they're
all.
actually just not understanding the impact of their actions when given time to reflect and to show curiosity towards them, like we get to do, every day. That's when there's like they truly start to realize, oh wow, like some of this stuff has like a pretty deep impact. I think about, for me, the thing that changed my mindset around Andrew Tate, or I guess opened my eyes up, was the girl that I was with for quite a few years. Her and I had a conversation once about like Andrew Tate being on my algorithm. And she asked me the question of, what would your sisters think if they knew that this was the stuff you were watching? And it was like a pretty sobering thing because
Yeah.
it's one of the best questions I've ever been asked. I remember sitting there and I was pretty stumped about it. And I was like, yeah, you're spot on. Because my sisters would be bloody ashamed of me if that was the case. And
Wow.
there's no one I want to be prouder than me than my sisters. So
Yeah.
that was the moment where I was like, although my intention isn't to harm, I see the harmful behavior. So I think that was something I spoke about when I was getting interviewed for 60 Minutes and it didn't get aired. But the way that I think forward is by having conversations and chats about this stuff, not only with your friends, but also with women, with your mums, with your sisters, with teachers, with coaches. And how can we just continue to expand our awareness around the impact of these things and these like online figures that aren't our own opinion? How can we take on other people's opinions just to expand our awareness a little bit further?
Yeah, and I love that, and that's why I'm so glad that we're speaking today. The thing is, I think you mentioned something like this. I mean, people don't know what they don't know, and I was also, thinking about that statement before we chatted today that we become like the 5 people that we hang out with the most, and I was thinking if there's somebody spending hours online listening to one person, they're gonna become like that one person unless somebody else intervenes and shows up in a bigger way. And I loved what you said on 60 Minutes, that young people have had these influences as their role models, but we need other role models to come in and show young people that there is a different way.
Of course. Of
And
course.
that's what made me like, I have to get Leeson on my podcast.
I do appreciate that. I don't know what the statistics are around it, but I have seen a stat around the likelihood of like a young person listening to a role model who's not a family member or not a parent. And I think that's why I see such deep value in our work, because we get to go and spend a day in high school and we just get to be who we are. And it just gives the boys just like a little viewpoint of like a way of being. For me, like my dad's always been like a good role model, but obviously for me as a 16-year-old, I don't want to be, to be honest, I didn't want to be exactly like my dad. I was looking further. Like what else is there? And yeah, I just think, imagine what this world looks like and what this culture looks like if there's a community where there are just so many healthy men moving around, men that know how to deal with these problems when they come up, men that don't choose to take it out on themselves, the people that they love. And yeah, it's a big, big mission. And the VK, we're a very small part of it, but the fact that we're getting to have any impact at all is like really, I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, no, and you are for sure. Leeson, let's talk about, for any parents that are watching and who aren't really educated in what's going on online, and I think that's one of the main issues that we have. Parents can't keep up with what's going on with their kids online. And we're in such a time-poor society where parents don't have a lot of time to continually be monitoring and fighting their kids. But things like, okay, that terminology, the red pill, looks maxing, and the manosphere. Can you just give us a brief description of those three things for any parent that need to be educated? Because you'll do it better than me.
I actually don't know if I can. So, well, the manosphere, I'm actually not going to answer that because I don't want to get it wrong. It's actually, I'm at a point now, if you ask me any kind of youth terminology about 2 years ago, I reckon I'd be spot on. I'd be on the money. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm very educated. I'm not kind of guessing. But the thing that I will say is like, at the end of the day, I'm just a 22-year-old that gets to go and hang out with young people. Like, parents are doing an amazing job. It's such a hard time to be a parent for a young person, especially a young man. That's something that I don't even know what that's like. And, you know, anytime I do speak to parents, whether it's in the basketball world or anywhere else, they're doing such a good job and they're doing the very best they can. It's like the hardest job in the world. I have no idea what it feels like.
Oh, well, we're all just big kids growing up.
That's it.
You know, that's what I say to kids that I used to work with and to anyone that's struggling with their parents, is that we're just big kids growing up. Nobody gave us a role model. The only role model we had was the one that we had. And if ours was a little bit damaged, that's what we got to learn.
I think it's about like just being what we want to see. I think like I've spoken a few times, like my dad always gave me permission. So now I feel like it's a skill that I've taken on where I'm able to give permission. And there are still so many flaws that I have around, yeah, like you're getting, I guess, like reactive to situations. And I think like I come on here being nowhere near a perfect product, but by being someone who's like, I'm really willing to like accept and to hear the times that I've gotten it wrong and where I've messed it up. And I think that's one of the things that young men, that I really want to try and get across to young men is like, it's okay to get it wrong. You're going to get it wrong, but how can we just learn to start taking a little bit of accountability and know that we have choice, we make mistake, we can actually do something about it. It's not like the be all or end all.
Good message, yeah. And you can get back up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for such a long time, I kind of thought that I've got to be perfect. I can't mess it up. I can't get it wrong. But you could ask anyone that knew me over the past between a year ago to 8 years ago, and they can tell you plenty of times that I definitely got it wrong.
Lisa, you talked about the suicide of the young person that you knew. Was that your actual rock bottom, or was there something else that kind of happened where you came to a realization that this online world was destructive in your life and you needed to change something? What was that moment where you broke free?
It's one of those things like you don't realize it when you're in it. And for me, like social media was the ultimate distraction back then. But it was so outside of my awareness how much damage it was causing and how much fuel it was putting on the fire. I'd just say the few months around, probably a month before he passed away, it happening, and then the month after, like, that was probably where my brain was in, like, the worst, like, my state was the worst. And yeah, without some of those characters being in my life, like, I don't know what would have happened, but that's definitely what's felt like rock bottom. That was definitely the time for sure where, like, when somebody passes away to suicide, which was happening so much during COVID, it's happening all the time, especially with young men. When it happens so close to you, it's like it takes quite a while for it to sink in. And it was happening at a time, like, that happened at a time where it was actually also something that I was considering. Like, my mental health was so bad. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, like, him passing away was almost like the crossroad moment.
Yeah.
And if I didn't meet this person, this girl that I ended up being with for quite a few years, if I didn't meet her, it probably would have gone this way. But because I met her, she was the one that showed me what choice was and what, yeah, just helped me grow, helped me heal.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like you've broken free now from the temptation to get on those sites that are defining what success is? Or is there still the pull sometimes to go on there, like to seek validation or reassurance that you're on the right mark? Or do you just steer clear thinking that it's all bullcrap?
Well, it was never intentional. Like, it was never like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go on this thing and learn how to, it was never that. It was just now I think I,
It was an addiction,
of
doesn't it?
course, of course. And it was like, this is the only thing filling my cup at the moment. And
Yeah.
whether there was some really good messages that got sent through, there's also so many like, bad ones getting pushed through also. Look, obviously for me now, it's because of all the people that I get to look up to. I've got so much eldership around me at the man cave that, yeah, I get held accountable. To be honest, I'm still one of the youngest. I'm probably one of the most immature people that are there. And yeah, there's been a lot of times where I've had people that have gone through more walks of life than me just kind of, help and show me the ropes and keep me accountable. And don't get me wrong, I love social media. My screen time's probably a lot higher than it should be.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Like, I love the
Yeah,
group
there is
chats.
a lot of, and I'm not demonizing social media.
Yeah.
There is a lot of good on there as well.
Of course, like, I love, posting videos on Instagram. I love
Yeah.
updating my people. I love my group chats. Like, I love sitting on phone calls with all my friends. And yeah, I wouldn't change that at all. But I think now I just have a further awareness of what could become damaging.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. And if we didn't have social media, I couldn't share my messages of hope.
Exactly. It's I've heard the saying before. I don't know how accurate this is, but I've heard the saying around, like, is it the gun or is it the person that shoots the gun? And it's
Right.
like, is it the phone and social media, or is it the way that we're choosing to use it?
Yeah.
And it might not be super applicable here, but at least for me in my story, it was like, I actually just know how to use it in a healthier way than I used to. Obviously, I was 16 back then. Of course, I'm going to use it for bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Leeson, what is your definition of success these days?
It's a great question. How do you measure success?
I know.
Look, for me, in my biased opinion, success for me is that if there's something hard that happens in my life, I have the tools and the skills to know how to deal with it, or at least try to deal with it. And I have the people that can help me go and will go through it with me. That's like, at a baseline what it means to me. Um, I used to think success was how much money you make, how popular you are, how big your status. But yeah, it's definitely shifted. If I'm able to get through hardship and have people that can support me during hardship and I can support them during hardship, I don't think I couldn't ask for much more success.
That's awesome. And what's been your greatest day?
My greatest day. Wow. Okay. Oh,
This is all about hope, isn't it?
it is about hope. Wow. My greatest day. That's a really tough question. This isn't anything massive, but it's just something that's kind of happened actually recently. For such a long time, I just didn't have people to lean on. And it took a long time. I know I'm kind of been on this same, like, narrative the whole time, but it's just so prevalent.
I love it. I love it. Connection is just the number one thing that the world is screaming out for and needs now more than ever.
Yeah. Look, I had this really hard moment within a relationship, like, probably like only a month ago. And for the first time in my life, I picked the phone up. I called my best mate and I went to his house and I just sat with him for a couple of hours. And it might not sound like anything that crazy, but for me as, like, a 22-year-old guy, like, to be able to call another man and lean on him to support me when I'm literally like breaking at the seams, like,
Yes.
and like, I hope, and I know he's going to listen to this. Like, his name's Dill. He's my best mate. I love him so much. And yeah, there's just like teenage me is just like looking up at that, just so grateful for the progress and the fact that, yeah, I don't have to do it all on my own.
That's
So as
so
much as it might not be the best day of my life, it's actually a really hard day. And it's such a beautiful moment just to be able to lean on people. Like it's something that for quite a long time I didn't think really existed. And I sat in the mindset of like a man who talks about his feelings is like he's gay or he's lame or I'm just so grateful that doesn't exist anymore.
That's so good. And difficult times teach us about the greatest gratitude, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I mentioned this to you before, but I sit in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings on Friday nights and I sit with people, that have hit the absolute rock bottom of life. And you listen to their stories because I was that way myself, and I did plan to end my life at 18 also and didn't go ahead and do that and got sober instead. But you listen to their stories and you just can't fathom how they're still alive. But sitting around that circle together, sharing our hard times through the week, and our hard times through life and being able to cheer each other on, is just brings such I can't even explain the gratitude that I have every Friday night when I leave those rooms. And it's about what we've been talking about through the whole thing, that human connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know this is you asking me questions, but I want to ask you a question. Can I do that?
Yeah.
What's your greatest day?
Wow. Other than obviously when my kids were born and when my son FaceTimed me after moving to Sydney and being down there for 6 years, and it was not long after COVID, saying that they were moving back to Queensland. That seriously, other than having my kids, that was like my greatest moment, I think. But I think when I heeded that voice that told me not to end my life, and then the other was after I hit my third rock bottom around 8 years ago before I started Stories of Hope, I stood up and shared my vision to do this with around 30 people. And I'd always suffered really massively with public fear of public humiliation. And I honestly didn't think that more than 5 people would turn up that night. It still makes me emotional. I stood there with tears, like, just streaming down my face, and my hubby said to me, "Oh, you've just found your greatest purpose." Since then, I've got up every single morning and I've just been thinking, "Who can I bring hope to today?" And in the beginning of, one of my books, I talk about the tribe of the wounded, and what that is when we've been through hard times, it's like we kind of become part of this club that we didn't choose to get to be part of. But there's so much joy and blessings in that tribe because we can sit down with another person and just cut that weather crap and just go straight to the heart of how we're feeling and talk about life. And that that person knows because they've struggled too. And to stand beside shoulder to shoulder with other people and see them come out the other side every single time, that's like, the greatest moment.
That is
There's a few.
That's beautiful. I know I said this to you the other day as well when we first spoke, but just I have the utmost respect for somebody who can turn hardship into something really powerful. And to be a fly on the wall on that first night that you were speaking of, like I just couldn't imagine how that actually would have felt for you. That would have been such a beautiful feeling.
Oh, and you know
Um,
what happened? It was about 2 minutes to 7 and only one person had turned up. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, my greatest fear my greatest fears come true." But prior to that, I got to the point in my life where the fear of not achieving my dream became so much greater than the fear of stepping out and facing the fear of public humiliation. And so I thought, well, I'll share my dream with that one person, and we never know what one person is the ripple effect that sharing something with one person or changing one person's life is gonna go on to have. So I thought, well, I'll share it with that one person, and then the door opened and there was 30 people that had been trapped down in the car park, and they all just started walking in one after the other, and that was an amazing moment. standing there then when you thought that there was one person that was going to turn up.
Oh,
But I've continued to have that mentality throughout all my events for the last 8 years now, that even if one person turns up, it's all about the one.
it's awesome. That's awesome. It's really interesting that you say that, because when we go and work with groups of teenage boys, at times will be like, a workshop, a full day workshop can go any which way. Quite often they're absolutely transformational, but our mindset's very like, if we can just move the dial a little bit for one boy, what an absolute privilege to be able to do that. And so I love that that's your mindset for your line, and for us, it's actually something really similar.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the Man Cave and exactly what they do.
Yeah, so I started Man Cave. I started working there just after I turned 20, so about 2.5 years ago, and I didn't really know what it was at first. It's ended up being the greatest place I've ever been in my whole life. But what we are is we're a preventative mental health charity, and we run full day workshops for groups of teenage boys within a high school setting. Now, we use like the rite of passage framework to take boys, to take boys on a journey through like separation. Will take over their space for the day, use a lot of our storytelling, hear their stories, and then actually step into a challenge. And quite often the challenge is based around giving the boys a chance to actually talk about what's going on and to help expand the emotional awareness of what's actually going on inside, to fight those social expectations and gender expectations of you can't do it, you got to be strong, can't be weak. And I'll never forget the first time I ever sat in a workshop. It was over on like the Frankston side of town, and I was just when you start, you just observe workshops, you don't actually run anything yet. I didn't really know the gravity of what we did, and so I was sitting there with two of the other guys. They still work for the cave, sitting there with two of the guys and seeing what they were able to do with these group of boys and what these group of boys were actually capable of when given the space. And that was the pinch me moment where I was like, whoa, what is this place? And I think I have that realization every single time I go into a group now. Like, I've done it over 150, 160 times. And
Oh, that's so good.
yeah, and like I've seen it in so many different ways, but there's just so frequently that feeling of like, there's something like magic, like an unspoken magic in what happens in those classrooms. And it's like, you can speak about it, but unless you were to see it, like, like it makes me so excited every time I get to speak about it, because yeah, I just think about like these beautiful young men that I've seen like actually be given, and I've used the word permission so frequently, but actually be given permission to just be who they are without the fear of all these other things and that feeling like they've got to be a certain way. It's like, if we had a whole world where young men did that, like, the next generation's in such good hands. Like, I'm really confident for these next generation of young men. I really am.
Oh, that's so good. What's your coping strategies for life and keeping your mental health well?
Yeah. So for me, like, the way that I choose to cope with things is, it's still a work in progress. Like, in the last couple of months, I've had moments where I've slipped up and I've chosen to try and deal with things myself and it's gotten worse, or I've reacted to a situation when I should have sat on it for a little bit. For me, like, having a professional to speak to is like so valuable. It's something that I've only just stepped back into. I used to have it when I was a little bit younger. I think I was quite resistant and thought that I didn't need it, but it's like going to the physio and like getting like your back rubbed out. Like, it's just like fine tuning your mental health and your emotional self. And yeah, for me, like, I'm just so lucky that I have people that I can go to when things get hard. Like, so many people.
Do you do exercise? Because that's
I do. I go to the gym. I try to go to the gym. I actually go pretty late at night. I go maybe like 4 or 5 times a week. I'm a basketball coach as well. So even just like coaching and being on the court and like training my young guys, that's a massive coping strategy. And I also like playing a men's team with a few of my mates, playing an under 23s team with some mates. And yeah, all of those things are just like little bits that fill your cup that little bit more, whether it's completely unrelated to an issue that's going on. It's actually just me doing something that I enjoy, or whether it's actually in the moment of hardship, choosing to lean on my people.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And now the message for the world. What do you want people to know?
I work in the realm of young people, young men. They have everything that they need. We spend so much time worrying about them, and I think that's beautiful. Once we choose to meet these young people with curiosity and compassion and offer them not force them, but offer them other ways of being, they've got everything that they need. And so my invite is more curiosity, more compassion, more kindness, not just to our young men, but just to everyone, into all forms. And yeah, I truly think like our young men are in a really nice place right now, in a really good place. They're in a far better place than it was when I was their age.
Oh, such an empowering message. Well, Lisa, thanks so much. It's been so great chatting to you, and all the best to you and all the people at the Man Cave. And I'm going to be stalking you guys now and maybe sending you some books as well.
It's interesting you say that. I was going to say, you mentioned the book before. What was the line that you used? You said about you said something. It's one of the lines in your books. You said it before. I forgot, but it was really powerful.
Oh, The Tribe of the Wounded.
That's incredible. Whatever book that is, I need my hands on it ASAP.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll get that to you.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And it sounds like you are doing such magnificent work. Like, the world's very lucky to have people like you that are choosing to turn hardship into something so beautiful and to offer more awareness for the rest of our community.
Oh, thanks, Leeson.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode, and remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.